Kobe was a very dear friend of mine, a little brother. At his last game in Washington, D.C. for, the Washington Wizards, I wore my Kobe jersey number 24, and on the sidelines we were captured, exchanging a hug. And it was a genuine hug. You can tell by the length of that hug, by the durability of that hug. It was a profoundly authentic expression of love between two black men in public. And so he was an extraordinary figure, a basketball genius, an athletic phenomenon, but also a man who forged a relationship with his daughters and his wife, and he became known as a girl dad, as a man who was defending women's sports, supporting the WNBA, supporting black women and white women and Latinx women and women of all stripes and hues to play their game, to do what they do. So not only was he a phenomenal, globally recognized athletic, genius, he was also a human being of substance and death. And he won an Oscar for a short film that he made about his love for basketball, but his love for basketball became the first phase of his life, and he went on to embrace all sorts of interests intellectually, socially, and culturally as a remarkable icon for the ages. This is why people are grieving as they are around the world.
You are live there in front of where this remembrance will happen. I was in LA. I felt like every corner had a mural from some young artist dedicated to Kobe. And Gianna, talk to me about the mood right now. I know it's a few hours earlier, but how do you describe what you feel in the air?
I mean, on the one hand, obviously, there's deep and profound grief. There's still a kind of surreal feeling that a man so vibrant, so electrifying, so intensely passionate about his gifts and the ideals to which he devoted himself could be gone in an instant without warning. And on the other hand, there's the celebration of his extraordinary life, of what he did in 41 years that marks his pilgrimage on earth. And so people are both grieving on the one hand because it's so surreal, and then celebrating a legacy that will continue as long as we draw breath and can recognize the feats of people on court, but also how they transcend that court to do things beyond their professional lives. So Kobe Bryant is celebrated, as you said, the iconography, the symbolism. Every building is lit up in his honor. Words are inscribed, pictures and images are being shared, and not only in the physical geography of Los Angeles, but across the world, tributes to Kobe Bryant are springing up and marking his extraordinary pilgrimage.
Many of our audience, folks who are watching, know you, of course, as a dominant political voice. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this grief show today is that this is universal. Everyone in this room, everyone watching will experience grief or loss in some way. I was so touched by a tweet you put out of your brother who passed away and your remembrance of him. None of us can escape this. You and I have been to many memorials, Aretha Franklin, the list goes on of famous names. But in the end, it boils down to you in your home, someone that you love, someone you were connected to, that you have to say goodbye to. How do you grieve, Michael? You just went through this with your brother. How do you grieve?
You're absolutely right. I've lost 2 brothers in 3 years, a cousin and an aunt. So I know the extraordinary, and I had to preach all of their funerals. So I know how deeply, profoundly traumatic it can be to lose a loved one, even if you anticipated it or if it's sudden, like in the case of Kobe. So what we have to do is to acknowledge that grief. You can't deny it. You can't run from it. There's a lot of grief shaming in the culture. You go to funerals and they say, oh, we're not going to be concerned about the negative. We're going to talk about the positive and celebrate their life. Wait a minute. Slow down. Let's not go too quickly past the necessary stage of expressing horror and shame and anger and passion in the face of that. The grief, the sadness, the sorrow, that must be expressed. That must be articulated, and we must allow people the space to do that. Then, as you transcend that earlier stage, it is true. You will never forget your loved one. You will always have memories of them, but you're able to then put it in a proper perspective and then move forward carrying them with you. But never disrespect the process of grief. Never feel ashamed to be able to express that grief, because only then will you be able to heal and move forward.